In the 1970s, Asian Pacific Americans lobbied the United States Congress for the creation of a new commemorative month. Activists wanted a time to celebrate Asian Pacific Americans. The cultures from the Pacific had been making contributions to life in America for over 130 years. In 1978, the legislation was approved. The month of May is now federally designated as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Since 2005, the mayor has proclaimed May as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month in an official ceremony. Many community organizations host additional events and programs to celebrate and educate. The official theme of this year's celebration is Celebrate Heritage, Celebrate Unity. Chinese immigrants arrived during the gold rush of 1849, and Asian Pacific Americans have been an essential part of San Francisco history. We will highlight a few events in San Francisco history that galvanized and united the Asian Pacific American community. The fight for bilingual education in our schools, the Third World student strikes, the birth of Kearny Street Workshop, and one unforgettable struggle that captured the attention of the nation, the decade-long fight against evictions at the International Hotel.
It was just really a horrifying experience where it was just very bloody and violent. Manilatown is right on Kearny Street. It actually was a 10-block community where many Filipinos lived, moving in about the 1910s into the 20s, 30s. And there were nightclubs and restaurants and, small businesses. But it was basically where a lot of, of the Manongs, many of them who came in that earlier time, that they called it home. At the time when the International Hotel struggle happened, it was right on Kearny and Jackson, that was like the last building, the last block of Manilatown that was still standing. San Francisco at the time was also going through a period where, there was redevelopment. They were expanding into Western Addition, the Fillmore, as well as in Yerba Buena. So they were tearing down a lot of communities. But at the same time, it was a time when a lot of us as Asian Americans were becoming more aware of our heritage and the conditions of our communities. And that basically created sort of a backdrop for the I-Hotel struggle.
The struggle began in 1968, when the first eviction notices were given to the elderly Manong residents. The International Hotel was spiritually healthy and was a hub for Filipino culture and community. But the I-Hotel sat on valuable downtown property, the last remaining block of San Francisco's Manilatown.
The owners wanted to tear the building down. They wanted to put up something more commercial like a parking lot.
In 1972, the building was put on the market and it was purchased in 1973. The new owner was a foreign investor with no ties to the local community.
And the only way that we could stop eviction was being able to build our base of support, in the community, outside the community. I mean, we really made those connections with the unions, with the churches, neighborhoods. We knew that having that strong base was our best offense against any further threats.
The tenants first looked for help in San Francisco's courts. Their appeals helped delay evictions for another 3 years, until April of 1976, when Superior Court Judge Ira Brown ruled in favor of the owners. The Manongs were going to be evicted.
You have to understand that at that time, there was a real mass movement that was building during those years after April 1976, that many people came and were in support of the tenants. There was one demonstration that happened in front of the hotel where thousands of people were marching around the whole block. And it was very, very significant because it really showed how much people were opposed to this eviction.
The decisive clash between the widespread community support and the property developers finally came on August 4th of 1977.
3,000 people out in front as a human barricade. There were several hundred police and sheriffs who basically seized the building, from up on the roof and then through the front, clearing out the human barricade and just executing, going right inside the building. Real tragedy. People were tossed out on the street, you know. And I mean, it was very degrading and humiliating for them to just be put out with all their belongings inside. And again, there was looting and, ransacking of their property, their money. It was just really a sad time. It was really a traumatic experience for me, personally. I mean, I never thought it would resort to going that far. I mean, you never know what an eviction is until you actually live through it. I mean, I'll never forget the faces. I'll never forget those who suffered through it. You know, these were my friends. Actually, many of them were like my teachers, because many of them were elderly men and women who were my closest friends. The elderly residents, they could only find what they could find, and a lot of it was they wanted to remain right there in Chinatown or Manila Town. You know, the housing was really very dangerous for many of them because it wasn't home, wasn't like their family or friends around them protecting them. I think for a lot of them died of a broken heart. If you look at the I Hotel, it wasn't just a housing struggle, it was a fight to also open up other things like a bookstore, like Kearny Street Workshop, you know, the infancy of an Asian American art form. And then at the same time, this wasn't just something that pertained to San Francisco. It spread. It became a symbol for Asian Americans all over the country. It was on television for the whole country to see.
The struggle to save the I Hotel was over, but both sides continued to maneuver, trying to win the real victory, to determine what would happen on the site of 848 Kearny Street. The impasse lasted for over 15 years.
Now, our mission was to get that building back up. The eviction happened in 77, the building went down in 79. And then years after 1979, it was just a hole in the ground. All those years when it was a hole in the ground, no one knew there was a Manila Town. It was all dormant until the building went up. And so, you know, we have succeeded in getting the city to recognize this is the Manila Town District. This is where the first Filipino community was here in San Francisco. Our whole goal with forming the Manila Town Center through the Manila Town Heritage Foundation was to make sure that we pass that legacy on. This story will be told again and again to other younger ones so that they will look upon this international hotel as a symbol and a real heroic struggle, just like you would a folk tale. We're hosting a lot of people from different schools like Stanford and UCLA. So in that sense, it's really an institution where people can really learn something, as well as some pride about the fact that, you know, really this is really our history. You know, this is our history as Asian Americans, that we came together and we fought for this and we were able to win.
You can learn more about the fight for the I Hotel by visiting the Manila Town Heritage Foundation on Kearny Street, or by visiting their website at manilatown.org.